Hi, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This is the show all about farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager, a farmer, or a food producer selling at farmers markets, or just a curious farmers market shopper, this is the podcast for you. Our guest this week is Sarah Marshall, creator, owner, and producer of Marshall's Hot Sauce. She's also author of Preservation Pantry, modern canning from root to top and stem to core, and still a weekly vendor at the Portland State University Farmers Market. In our conversation, Sarah shares about her background in canning and preservation, how she found her place at the farmers market, and where she finds inspiration for new recipes. Hi, I'm one of your hosts, Bridget Myers. I've spent years as an on-site farmers market manager and have done it all from covering storm drains to measuring fire lanes.
And I'm another one of your hosts, Justine Marzoni-Mead, farmers market vendor and event facilitator for the Intense Conference.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, Director of San Diego Markets, still an active farmers market manager, and founder of Intense Business.
Welcome back to Tent Talk. Today we're joined by Sarah Marshall, the creative genius behind Marshall's Hot Sauce. Sarah started Marshall's Hot Sauce in her home kitchen, but the business quickly outgrew her home, and she now operates in a commercial kitchen in Southeast Portland, where she continues to make each bottle by hand. Sarah's love for canning and preserving local ingredients didn't just lead to a beautiful and tasty product line, it also inspired her to become a published author. Sarah's beautiful book, Preservation Pantry, Modern Canning from Root to Top and Stem to Core, hit bookshelves last fall. Marshall's Hot Sauce can be found at the Portland State University Farmers Market March through October, as well as in numerous retail locations across the country. Sarah was a speaker at the 2018 Intense Conference, and we're incredibly excited to have her join us again for the 2019 conference.
Hi, ladies.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
So, Sarah, what's the story behind Marshall's Hot Sauce? What inspired you? Why hot sauce instead of muffins? Why hot sauce instead of something else you could have done? What inspired you to start that company?
Well, I used to be a social worker, and so I was doing a lot of cooking and canning as my release from my stressful job because it was really stressful. I did that for about 10 years, and so I was really teaching people how to can food from the farmers market, and I was teaching families how to get food from the food bank and jar it and pickle it. And at that time, they had made a lot of changes in the laws where I could do some in-home manufacturing with something that was called a domestic commercial kitchen license at the time.
So similar to we've got cottage food here in California?
Yeah. It's like the same idea.
Does that still exist?
It does, but there's different requirements
Gotcha.
now. So this was 8 years ago. I still probably could do it, but I maybe would have had to do a few more tweaks. But the things that you could do in home were acidified food. So you could do sauce, jams, pickles, things like that. So I just kind of had to make a decision on what to do. And I had these farmers that were growing all these really great peppers that were donating them to the homes that I worked in at the time. So it was just kind of a natural progression that I had access to all this really awesome food. I had access to all these peppers because the farmers were growing them and they couldn't really sell very many at the market. And so I just started developing these recipes, not really knowing what would come from it. But I was having the kids eat the food and the families. And I just thought maybe I would give it a try for a little while. And then here I am.
There you are. So it sounds like you had a good relationship with farmers markets even before you decided to turn this whole thing into a business. So did you think farmers markets would be, was that part of your plan when you first originated Marshall's Hot Sauce? I'm going to start at farmers markets?
Well, I wanted to. I don't know if your markets are the same, but they're a little bit cutthroat to get into. So especially the big ones, sometimes you have to be on the waiting list for quite some time before you can get into them. But my idea was always that I wanted to be there, and I knew the farmers there, and I knew that if I sourced from them, that I would have a better chance at getting into the market, rather than if you source from, say, or if you have a co-packer make your stuff, or if you source from farms that aren't in the area, it's a little bit harder to get into the market.
Yeah, we
so
definitely.
That was really.
Yeah, we do that too. I mean, we definitely have a preference for people that are using local ingredients since it is first and foremost a farmer's market. We also look for, other kinds of things, bread, jam, what have you, that are made from hot sauce, that are made from local farmers' produce. So.
Yeah, well, and I really wanted to be there. I mean, I loved the farmer's market. I loved the days that I would go pick up produce that they were donating. I loved like the relationships I started building. And I think like when I first started doing social work, I really wanted to be part of my community. That's why I was interested in it and wanted to do it. But I didn't really find that connection to people there. And so I really found it at the farmer's market where I had these really good relationships with people. It's a really healthy environment like for me to be in, to bring my daughter to. And so I just really wanted to be part of that. So that was definitely on my agenda from the beginning of starting the business.
That's amazing. It sounds like your cost of goods may have been positively affected by farmers donating peppers. Did they keep donating them after you turned it into a business, or did you start buying those peppers?
I definitely could not accept donations that they were donating to the group home to make my business. I made a clear cut between I stopped doing social work for 6 months. Before,
gotcha.
While I went back to school to do some business planning and figure everything out. But I had a lot of vacation time from my old job because I'd been there for so long. So I had a little bit of time to, get my business together before I actually had a product to sell, about 6 months.
Gotcha. And I love the name. Hot sauce, so so catchy.
That's my husband. He is very funny, and
he is really funny.
He loves to come up with interesting puns. At that time, we did a lot of artwork. That was kind of his release from his stressful social work job, and so he did a lot of drawing, and everything was based on these puns. And we did this monster art show where it was the Golden Girls, but they were monsters. So, I mean, he that's just his personality, straight into the business, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
For our listeners who don't know what we're talking about, it's hot sauce, Haute sauce. So
hot sauce.
So
I love it.
I love it.
I love it. And it's a family business, right? You and your husband both work on this?
Yeah, so this is our full-time job. It's the two of us, and then we just have 2 part-time employees. So one of those employees worked with me at every social work job I ever had, and then the other one is Dirk's cousin. So it's still very
family
much
oriented.
A family business. Yeah,
that's great. And have you worked other farmers markets? I discovered you at the Portland State Market up in the Park Blocks. Have you worked at other farmers markets as well?
I have. So over the years, I've done almost all of them. We have them all around the city. So the Portland Farmers Market as an organization does a lot of the smaller neighborhood markets within the city. But then there's also ones in the suburbs that are run by separate people. So I have done, when the first year I started, I did every market I could because nobody knew who I was. People hadn't tried my sauces. And it was really the best way for me to get in front of customers, before I was in stores and all of that stuff. So I did as many markets as I could. And I would just do a market every day of the week. And then I would come home and make my sauce. Well, I would come home and take a nap. And then I would wake up and I would make my sauce until really late at night. And so that was the first couple of years. But then when I had my daughter, it got a little tricky to do that. So now really we just do the big PSU farmers market on Saturdays.
Gotcha. And why did you narrow down to that one? Just because it was larger or because you'd had longer relationships there? Or?
Yeah, well, it's where we pick up most of our produce from. So that, we would be there anyways, even if we didn't have a stand there anymore. So we're still going there all the time to get our produce. But then also it is the biggest one. So it attracts the most people. And so we don't hire anybody to do the booths for us. It's either Dirk or I, or hopefully both of us, unless I'm doing something else. But so we really wanted to just keep the connection to our customers here in the city so that they could come find us somewhere.
Yeah, and it's actually a really, really special market. I think it's one of the better markets in the whole country, or one that I've seen anywhere. So I always loved seeing you there. You've always been in Oregon, is that right? Are you born and raised Oregonian?
Yeah. I grew up here, but not in Portland. So I grew up in Welch's, which is a really tiny mountain town on the base of Mount Hood. Most people know it because it's the only stoplight on the way up to the mountain. So that's where I grew up. And then I came, when I graduated high school, I came into the city to go to college. So I went to PSU, and then I've just been here ever since. So now it's funny because my husband and I both worked on campus. And so we've really spent our whole lives on the PSU campus.
And you still are.
Yeah, we're still there. I used to work at the Women's Resource Center, and the door to the Women's Resource Center is like right behind my booth now.
Oh, nice. Do you think it's given you kind of a step ahead in your business to be operating in the town that you grew up in? Do you have people that follow you because they kind of like your sauce, but especially because they went to high school with you? Or do you have more connections?
No, not really. So the amount, I mean, it's still quite a ways away. It's about 45 minutes away. So I don't really see people that I went to school with much. I mean, sometimes if they are still around and come into the city, but it's more the people that I met after that, like when, more like going to school and then the jobs that I've had. So I still have like a good connection to the people that are here, but it's not really from growing up here. It's like later in life. Yeah.
Right. So like most people shop at the farmers markets that they're close to, you're selling at the farmers markets you're close to. That's just, it works out okay.
That's kind of how it is for me and Dave. It's like, I don't know, there's something about owning a business in like a town that you're really familiar with. It's fun.
Yeah, I get to see
people
all
around.
my friends. Yeah.
You can prove to all those people who said you'd never amount to anything. Here I am.
Look at me.
Look.
You said I wouldn't make it. So Sarah, I mean, it sounds like you get a lot of your the ingredients for your sauces at the farmers market, which is awesome. Can you tell us about what it's like to develop a bunch of really specific local seasonal flavors?
Yeah, I didn't really mean to have as many flavors as we do. I started out with 4, and then we did like one seasonal one the first year and then another one the next year. And the reason that we did these really small batches of them is because we were just buying things from farmers that we like. So our first like seasonal one was our Ghost Chili Apple. And there's this woman, Susan, that has an apple farm called Old World Apples. And it's just her. She's probably 80 years old. She usually has a couple people that help her bring the apples to the market. And I just really liked her, and I wanted people to know about her and know her story because she was not there very long. She's only like at the market for a couple of months. And so we did this Ghost Chili applesauce, and she just had a couple of the apple trees for the apple that we chose, the Honeycrisp apple. And so we made maybe 100 bottles that first year. And so people just bought it, and then they wanted more. And I was like, oh, you have to wait till next year. I can't get the apples. And so then we just kind of stuck with that. And we were like, if we can't get the things from the same people that we want to get them from, then we just won't have that sauce. And what that kind of did was create this demand for our seasonal flavors. So people want to know when they're going to come out, when we're going to have them, how many they can get, and then how long we'll have them for. And so I didn't do it on purpose, but it's been really nice for like sales and for marketing and for just like naturally having people like gravitate towards our business at the certain times of the year that they know things are coming out. So it's been pretty fun. But then as I came up with different flavors, and especially as I was developing all these recipes for the cookbook, I just started putting other ones out. And so we ended up with a lot of seasonal flavors.
That's cool because you built this like little cult following where people have to like pay attention. They have to, do their research, know when her seasonal flavors are coming out. And
and it's like Cabbage Patch Dolls or something, anything that there's not quite enough of. People really, really want to get.
Really want it.
And it's true. I mean, and it's been such a fun thing. And so people like look forward to that. And then, know that they're buying it for like, especially around the holidays, like we do a cranberry red jalapeno one. And so we've become like part of people's like family traditions through these limited sauces, which is really cool.
That's really cool. Beside the fact that they're very limited in number, are there any drawbacks of doing these kind of special one-off flavors?
Oh, just that sometimes people get mad when you don't have it.
They can't Amazon Prime another bottle.
Not usually, except for sometimes people will buy big batches of stuff from us and then they'll sell it on something like Amazon maybe. So sometimes you can actually, but it's
scalping the sauce.
It's not from us. It's from somebody else.
Oh, funny.
Oh my gosh.
How do you deal with labeling on that, Sarah? Do you have your basic jar, something that you print in really big quantity, and then you do kind of individual labels that you control more easily when you're going to have limited runs?
Well, so we hand stamp all of our labels with like the expiration date and the batch date, but then we'll just print them in smaller runs. Like, so for the Ghost Chili Apple, we printed those labels maybe a couple of years ago, but we just have enough to like keep going. Cause it's one of those things where if you print a bunch of stuff at one time, it's much cheaper. Like when I first started printing my labels, they were like $1 a label, which is obscene, but I just couldn't like afford to print 10,000 labels, And so then now when you order them in that quantity where it's more like 10,000, they're more around like 12 cents a label, which is where they should be. But for us, we couldn't really get to that point until we were like maybe 5 years in where we could really start ordering bigger quantities of stuff.
And in addition to all your amazing sauces, you also do a lot of really cool collaborations with chefs and businesses in Portland. And I loved hearing about this when you talked last year or earlier this year at Intense.
Yeah.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit about kind of where those collaborations come from and how you figure out who's going to do what and how you make those work?
Yeah, well, we kind of just let them naturally happen. So we meet a lot of the chefs at the market. So I know that you guys have the same thing where a lot of the chefs come really early. They have all their produce they're picking up from other places. And so they just know us from being there. And so sometimes maybe before the market starts, they'll come and, eat some hot sauce and talk with us about what they've got going on or whatever. And so a lot of those relationships over the years have just developed into these really awesome friendships. And so then when somebody's doing some kind of cool event, they'll like think of us and be like, hey, we're doing this big party. Would you want to make hot sauce for it? And then if we like how the sauce turns out, we'll go through the process to bottle it or whatever. Or sometimes we end up like, I think I talked about the spicy wine that we did. That was just going to be for a party. And then the winery ended up bottling it and selling it, which is really cool. So we didn't know that that's what was going to happen, but it just sort of naturally happens just from like hanging out and chatting with people and eating food and drinking wine.
It's probably easier for you too because you do all these seasonal runs, so you're used to kind of making like a specialty run of a sauce or coming up with new recipes. I would think it would be easier for chefs to work with you rather than someone that just has like a really set line of products and hasn't ever ventured into developing new products. You just seem like as a chef it would be easy to work with you to like develop something new and specific for them. So that's probably really fun for the chefs.
I think recipe development is like my favorite part of this job. So I do some recipe development for other companies, and I just really like being creative and coming up with stuff and playing around with ingredients. So even like at the end of the day at the farmers markets, farmers still give me produce and say, hey, I didn't sell this. I'm sure you could do something cool with it. And I'll just like pickle it or sauce it and then bring it back, and then we'll all eat it and talk about what we think about it.
I really wish I had that ability. I just don't have it in me, but we have access to all that stuff at the market, and so that's probably so great for them and for you. And
I think it makes it really fun because it's that way with a lot of the farmers too. A lot of times they don't really cook much. Like they're surrounded by all of this beautiful, awesome produce, but they just take it home and put our sauce on it a lot of times. We have our lettuce farmers that are across from us, and they always like buy our sauce because they're like, we've always just eaten plain vegetables, like plain sauteed vegetables. And that was it. Like, it was fine. It's what we grew. But now it's like exciting because we can like, put your stuff on it and then it's even better. So it's like, it just creates this cool like dynamic of stuff to talk about. And, it's the idea of just still sharing food and sharing what each other does. And that's like the community aspect that I love so much.
So is that how is that what led you to writing your book, Preservation Pantry, because you had all these recipes going, or did you think about writing a book and then sit down and develop a lot of the recipes that are in there? So how did that come around?
Yeah, I didn't know that I was writing a book, but I was just like creating stuff, and I was writing all the recipes on little scraps of paper, and I just like kept everything and was like, well, this is something like maybe I could pass this on to my daughter or something like that. But then I was contacted by a publishing company who maybe was interested in me doing something. So we had talked about it, and they wanted me to submit a proposal. And doing that proposal took about a year of development because I was really taking all of the recipes and coming up with a cohesive idea. And then the book that I pitched, they didn't really want. They wanted me to do a hot sauce book, which I really wanted to teach people more than that. You know, I wanted to give people a skill. And so I repitched the book to a different publishing company. Well, I got an agent who did that. So she knew the right company to pitch it to, and then she got the book contract. So it's just one of those things. Like, I didn't know that's what I was doing. I didn't really mean for that to happen. But then once I put all that time into it, then I was like, okay, this kind of has to happen because I've put all this time and money into creating this. You know, I had to take time away from the business to work on the book the whole time. So it's, it's a huge undertaking when you do that kind of thing. I didn't even realize it when I was getting into it, but
yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that it's, even though they're just cooking and making things constantly, doing that is very different than putting that all down and getting into a book that makes sense and that can be pitched to publishers and then printed and sold. So it seems like you did a lot of all the creative work.
Yeah.
You were already in the mix of that, but then all of that like logistical work of making it a book, that's tough stuff. So that's pretty cool that you got that together and did it.
And Preservation Pantry is such a beautiful book.
It's
so
pretty. I bought a copy for my mom for Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And it was so perfect because like the intro is all about like Sarah, your relationship with your mom and how you came with her. It's really cute. And then I think we made like your falafel recipe, which was really amazing.
Oh, fun.
It's a really,
that's good.
really beautiful book.
Did you take photographs for the book, Sarah? Or did the publishing company? Did you have a photographer that you knew? Or did the publishing company assign a photographer?
No, so the book really took every person that I know in my life to make as beautiful as it is. So my friend Brooke did all of the watercolor illustrations, and she is the one that started the canning club that I'm in and part of. So she did all of that. And then my friend Caleb did all the photos, and I've known him, half of my life, and he does a lot of photography, but hadn't done a lot of food photography. And then my friend Ashley, who's a food stylist here in town, she does a lot of cookbook styling. So Ashley Marty, her Instagram is Local Haven. So you can see all of her beautiful food photos, but she really knew what she was doing. She had a lot of experience doing cookbooks. She really helped. I feel like we were in over our heads a little bit. She really helped us figure it out because it's a lot. Like, I couldn't imagine taking a whole day to do one photo, but that really happens sometimes. Wow. So it was a huge project, and I think it couldn't have turned out any better. Like, I think it's so amazing, but it really is like, it's a lot to take on. I had no idea.
Yeah. So do you have any other, well, I don't know if I should ask this now, but do you have any other books in the works? Or is that something that's on the horizon? You just did such a good job. I know you just told us how tough it was. But
I feel like it's one of those things, like, we entered one sauce contest one time and we got first place. And then I was like, I think that's it. And then I think it's kind of like this with a book too. Like, we did I did this one book. It took everyone I knew. It took so much time. I love it. And I'm like, I think I can't really top it for myself. Like, I think that's it. But there's so many other things I can do, like.
Yeah, quit while you're ahead with the book.
It's like, cross it off your bucket
for quitting at the top.
Yeah, quit at the top. So what else is going on with hot sauce? Any new flavors or what's on the horizon? Are you guys just chugging along at the market or anything new?
I don't think so. I've tried to focus a lot on just teaching classes now. So we do the farmers market, but I do a lot of teaching canning classes. So we run those out of our home through Airbnb. So I'm teaching about 2 times a week, and then I go do them other places too. So that's where my focus has been, to still be doing the sauce production and still be part of the market. But really, giving a lot to the community and teaching these classes. So that's where my focus has been. And I think we'll keep doing that. As far as new flavors, I think we'll always come out with something fun. And then we'll probably just keep doing these small runs. And then if people like it, maybe we'll do it again the next year. But I kind of like just keeping it interesting by doing these different recipes that are just short-lived.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. You're innovative with packaging, too. Your packaging's so beautiful, but one of the things that impressed me at the farmers market in Portland is that you also do those really little bottles, so people who have got a carry-on, don't want to check bags like me, can take food home, which I thought was really clever.
We really kind of let our shoppers and our audience tell us what they want from us. So we do those tiny ones because that's what everybody wanted to take on the plane. So we started doing those. We do some big ones. We call them Secret 16s, where our customers that shop with us all the time that want more and they want to eat it in a bigger quantity, we'll do those bottles for them. It's the same with how we started doing gallons for restaurants. Like if restaurants really wanted big quantities, we started doing that. So we just kind of let people tell us what they want, and then we do it.
That's great.
I love that. That's what's kind of the joy of the farmer's market, I think.
Yeah.
Because like if you're sitting on a shelf somewhere, you don't know what the customers are desiring size-wise or anything like that. So at the market, you can kind of ask them those questions. And I know I get like a half gallon of like balsamic from my balsamic vendor at the market, and she doesn't have it for sale, but I was just coming there so often buying little bottles, and she's like, I can just make you a half gallon.
Yeah.
Like, please. And so it's those things that help.
Yeah, that's why Dirk and I try to be the ones at the market, because we wouldn't necessarily know that if we weren't there talking with people. And I think things would just kind of stay the same, and they can get maybe a little boring, or then it just becomes like a packaging production job, and I still want to be like connected with people and be making special things for them and with them. And that's the part that I enjoy. So I like to keep doing that.
Yeah, it seems like you're doing it right.
Thanks.
Well, we really had a good time talking to you, and we were so excited to have you at Intense this past spring and learned so much. And so we're hopeful that our listeners are going to learn a lot from our conversation.
So we're Sarah's going to be back in 2019.
And coming in 2019.
Exciting.
That's
Yay.
right. Yes. I feel like you're such a wealth of information because you've just done so much, so many of the things that I feel a lot of our vendors aspire to do or don't know how to do, right. And so just kind of listening to you talk about your journey is really helpful for them. So thank you for being an intense friend.
Of course.
So we always do a little wrap-up question at the end of our interviews. So we'll kind of go around and we'll each answer this. But if you want to tell us, this week's question is, what is the most unique flavor combination you've come up with and or accidental recipe you've created? So I know you do a lot of different recipe making and flavor combinations, but is there something that's kind of stood out to you that you've made either with hot sauce or just using farmers market goods, kind of cooking at home?
I think what I like to always encourage people to do is to just get creative with stuff. So I wouldn't even have any of the recipes in the book if I didn't try everything that I thought of. So if I have an idea, I just do it. I just try it. Even if I'm like, it might not work or it might turn out gross or whatever it is, I just try it no matter what, because it sometimes leads to something else that's interesting. So even like when I was experimenting with all of the stuff to teach people how to use stuff they would normally compost, I came up with a lot of things that weren't that great and that were like kind of gross. Like I'd be like, oh, could I dry banana peels and then shred them up into peanut butter? Well, I mean, I did try it and it was disgusting. So it doesn't always work, but it then leads to other ideas like, oh, maybe banana peels will be gross, but orange peels might be better, so it just leads to like other things.
Yeah. Kat, what's something that you've made kind of on accident that actually turned out great, or maybe the opposite?
We used to run a restaurant, as you know, Bridget.
Yes.
And it was a really small restaurant, but we were doing really high volume. So one of the keys to that was to have a really small inventory. So we had a whole bunch of variations, but we had only so much room in the fridge for ingredients. So they all had to come from that little pile. So we did end up with a sandwich one time that was turkey, apples with Tofino cheese melted on it, orange marmalade on the cinnamon raisin bialy bread. So it was sort of a strange mashup of protein and fruity flavors, and it was very popular. It ended up on the menu for a really long time.
People just loved it. Yeah. So interesting. Justine, what have you come up with? I know you're in the kitchen a lot.
Well, I mean, I'm an okay cook. I'm not that adventurous. But one of the sauces that we have, it was actually a collaboration with the chef, and it's a really unique flavor. It's a lemongrass barbecue sauce, but there's like seaweed in there, and there's these like fermented black beans, and it's just a really, really unique flavor combination that
I did not know all that was in that bottle. Yeah. And that's a great sauce, but who knew?
Yeah, there's like ginger, lemongrass, there's a lot of stuff in there. So that's by far like the most unique flavor that we've come up with, for sure.
And it's paid off, I feel like, because now it's in your line of sauces and everyone loves it. Yeah.
It's very polarizing. You kind of either love it or hate it.
Yeah.
I particularly really like it, but it's not for everyone.
To me, it doesn't even exactly taste like a barbecue sauce all the time. Like, it just tastes like a really good sauce. Like, it has a barbecue sauce flavor, but it tastes like something totally different. Yeah. Like, I put it on barbecue sauce. Things, but then it kind of changes the flavor of the meal when I use it. But
so good, Bridget, that's kind of taste sensation? Your most recent taste sensation?
Yeah, well, I don't really cook, as everyone knows. But I do try different stuff on my food so that it'll taste different. And I was just telling Justine, not to, like, plug your sauce, but we use Baby Clydesdale sriracha sauce in, like, every single thing. I never used it. Like, I've known Justine and Dave since they've been in the market for a couple of years. And I was like, no, I don't like spicy stuff. I'm, like, such a sissy with the spice. I'm never going to try your sriracha. Like, no way. And so I got it for my husband once, and he told me it's so good. It's not even, like, super spicy. Just use a little bit. Anyways, ever since then, we've just putting on everything, like eggs. We put it on our salad dressing, which I feel like I just feel so brilliant for doing that. But we make, like, an oil and vinegar salad dressing, and I put hot sauce in it, and it's so good. But last night, it was, like, my kids' first day of school. I have 3 kids, and first day of school yesterday. So, of course, I'm making, like, whatever's in the fridge.com, you know, like, just putting everything in a pot. And so I made, like, a pasta with beef and just veggies that were on the verge of, like, expiring. And it wasn't very flavorful. My kids are eating it. But I put Baby Clydesdale sriracha sauce on the pasta. And I know that's probably not a brilliant thing to, like, everybody, but my husband and I literally just texted me. It was revolutionary. And he just texted me before we sat down, and he goes, remember that pasta last night? Can we please make that again today? Like, he's like, we're idiots. We've never done it before. So I like those happy, like, happenstances. Like, stuff just doesn't taste good, or it doesn't taste like anything. Like, Sarah, you were saying the farmers with their vegetables. Like, yeah, we'll eat vegetables. Like, we grow vegetables, so then we just eat them. But then you just do something simple. Like, put, like, a salt or, like, a hot sauce on it, and it just changes everything.
I had that realization a couple months ago. I never really liked sour cream, but I was like, let's try this. And I now like this. It's probably not good for me. I put sour cream on everything now.
Wow. I'm kind of working out while you're doing that.
Eating brought to you by Intense Business.
Yes. That's why I walk to work.
You need to make a healthy, flavorful sour cream. That's why you walk here.
Coconut cream, edible alchemy.
Yeah, there you go. Change the flavor. Yeah. So, it's just, those fun things. Well, now we're going to make our own cookbook with all of our bizarro foods.
Bizarre combinations, volume 1.
Well, thanks so much for talking to us, Sarah. Really appreciate it. And we're, again, looking forward to having you at Intense 2019.
I'm super excited to see you guys again.
Yeah. Keep it up, and I'm sure we'll be in Portland soon, too, so we'll come see you at the market.
I'm in Portland in 2 weeks, so
That's
I'll come see
right.
you.
Oh, cool.
Yes. Yeah. My nephew's starting college, and, he's going to Oregon State, so I told him all about the Portland market. He's got to make a long trip in.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, Sarah. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye. Thanks. Bye. Thanks for listening along. Please leave us a review on iTunes and tell us how you liked today's episode. Also, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss our next one. And if you want more farmers market tips, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter at intensebusiness.com and follow us on Instagram at intensebusiness. That's INTENTS business. The 2019 Intense Conference will be held in San Diego, February 24th through 26th. Sarah Marshall and other featured speakers are now listed on our website where you can register right now, and we hope you'll join us.
This podcast is produced by Intense Business, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni-Mead. Original music by David Mead. Special thanks to our guest Sarah Marshall and San Diego Markets.